Hello, BookTube. It's time for another tag. Steve Donoghue tagged me in 10 years, 10 books tag. It's supposed to be from 2010 to 2020, but that's 11 years, so I'm going to scrap to 2020 because I don't have any books from that. I don't even have some books from some of the years because I'm not a huge buyer of new books, especially not within the year they were published, with a very few exceptions, but you'll see a couple. And it's supposed to be the favorite books for those years. Many times this is the only book that I read that was published in that year. So, in some ways I thought it might have been easier to do 1910 to 1919, or even 1810 to 1819, or centuries before. But we'll see how far we go. For 2010, for nonfiction, is Mark Twain's autobiography, the Volume 1 that came out. I pre-ordered that, so I did buy it within the year that it was published, and read it within the year that it was published, which is a rarity. It was to be held back for 100 years, and there's the subsequent volumes have been. I think they've all been published now. There's at least 3 in total, possibly 4. I'm not sure. I don't have the subsequent volumes, so I'm going to have to buy them at some point and then read them all the way through. But 2010 for fiction is The Strange Affair of Spring-Heeled Jack by Mark Hodder. It's steampunk, alternate history, with Sir Richard Francis Burton as a character and Charles Algernon Swinburne. It's the Burton Swinburne adventures. This is the first book, and Hodder uses the Penny Dreadful character of Spring-Heeled Jack, who terrorized London. He was able to spring around and possibly have springs on his feet. Terrorized, and then he was able to leap tall buildings and then disappear. So he uses that. The character of Spring-Heeled Jack, or becomes known as Spring-Heeled Jack, is from the future, comes back to the past in the mid to late 1800s. I forget the exact year, to assassinate Queen Victoria to change his future. It screws up. He wants to go back to his time, but he starts bouncing around in time. And at some point, he gets injured, and he winds up at sort of a decrepit old lord of the manor, a lord of some sort. I can't remember the name, but he starts talking about, electricity, cars, and all sorts of things like this. So this lord gets together sort of the biggest and brightest of the time, scientists and engineers like Isambard Kingdom Brunel, Charles Babbage, Florence Nightingale, Charles Darwin, and there's many other names like minor scientists, but then they take these ideas and apply them to the technology and material items that were at the time. So they in using steam for the running of engines and getting electricity and so forth. And it just creates an interesting milieu of sort of the period. So the whole history line has changed, and London, I like the picture of London where it's just, because there's more use of coal for the steam engines to run everything. It's just almost constant night in London, and there's areas that are so dark that you can't even see inches in front of you, that it's just completely black at times, and just it's dark in many ways, dark in feel and everything. But anyway, that's sort of the beginning of that one. So I really enjoyed that. So that would have to be my favorite, because it's the only one I think I read from 2010. 2011, we've got, for nonfiction, Folks on Fiction, Sebastian Folks. And it's Great British Characters and the Secret Life of the Novel. It's BBC Books, 2011. It's kind of nice. They made a specific bookmark for it as well. They're basically essays, and he goes through and he splits them up into heroes. So he has Robinson Crusoe, Becky Sharp, Tom Jones, Winston Smith. So he comes to newer times. Lovers, Mr. Darcy, Heathcliff, Nick Guest, Snobs, Charles Pooter, Jeeves, James Bond, Villains, Fagin, Count Fosco, Barbara Covett. And it's just, they're just fun little things. It's his sort of take on what he thinks of the novels and everything. So I enjoyed it, actually. Now, for fiction, 2011, I have, is this 2011? Yes. It's the 5th installment of Charles Brandreth's Oscar Wilde mysteries. And this is Oscar Wilde and the Vatican Murders. And he takes Oscar Wilde, and he basically is Sherlock Holmes. And Arthur Conan Doyle is a character in this specific book as well, and he runs all the way through most of them. And he obviously he models Sherlock Holmes on Oscar Wilde and the mysteries he solves. And this is published by John Murray, and as I say, 2011. And it sort of starts out where Doyle is sort of kind of tired of things in life, so he's taking a bit of a vacation, I think, not London, Rome. And who shows up? Oscar Wilde. And they're going through his fan mail, and they find a severed hand, finger, and a mystery, and it leads them to the Vatican to solve. I enjoy them. They're fun. It seems to be popular now to take characters and make them, solve mysteries. And I'm curious at the Mitford sisters ones that they've done. That's been done, and I just found out that it's actually. I knew the name was Fellows. Is it Jessica Fellows? Yeah, and I was wondering if there was any connection to Judith Fellows, and it's actually her daughter. So I do like Judith Fellows' books, so it'd be interesting to try those. But anyway, off track. Let's get back. So 2012, I don't have anything that I could find, and I can't think of anything that I've read. I don't have anything fiction or otherwise. 2013, I do have, and I don't. Actually, I don't have 2000. I'm missing 2013 for nonfiction. 2012 and 2013. Oh, I'm wrong here. If I got these in the wrong order. In the wrong order. Okay, 2013. I'm going to lie a little bit this one because I haven't finished it. And I've mentioned this already. It just happens to be, I think, the only 2013. It's Romanticism and Blackwoods Magazine, an Unprecedented Phenomena. Edited by Robert Morrison and Daniel S. Roberts. It's one of the series of Palgrave studies in the Enlightenment, Romanticism, and Cultures of Print. And it's Palgrave 2013, and it's just got essays on the Blackwoods magazine and the literary world of the time. And it was I really enjoyed it, or I've enjoyed it up to this point. And I just have a few more essays to read, which I will get to at some point. So no fiction for. So no 2012 fiction or otherwise, but I got 2013 nonfiction, and I think I've got 2013 fiction, yes. And it's another installment in the Burton Swinburne Adventures. This is sort of the book that they reboot everything. It's a bit strange, so I need to reread the whole series and then read the last two books. There's two more after this. And I sort of ran out of steam with this one because steampunk, steam. I didn't mean to make the pun. It just because I wasn't quite sure what they were doing, so it will require another read to make sure I understand what Hodder is doing, and then see where he takes it from there. So that was 2013. 2014 for nonfiction. I've got this here little book. It's very slim. It's science fiction by Brian Baker. It's a reader's guide. It's very cursory, but it brings up some newer stuff that I hadn't actually sort of known about, because my reading of science fiction history stopped probably about 25 years ago at the very latest. So this actually brought in a few extra things, but there wasn't much new with this. I only got it because it's one of those times where Amazon, for some reason, drops prices for things. And I remember this went to I remember the exact price of this was £1.37. I don't know what the full price is. It doesn't say, but it probably was a lot more, because it's a Palgrave book, even though it's paperback. But it's a print-on-demand book, and so it's Palgrave. And those are usually expensive. That's going to be like £30, I would think. But for some reason, they dropped it, and they dropped a couple others that were sort of at the bottom. A book on Japanese science fiction and on Soviet science fiction. I've hardly read much Soviet science fiction, and this is about the history of Soviet science fiction, so haven't read that yet. I don't know what year it is. And Japanese, I don't think I've ever read any Japanese science fiction. The only stuff I've seen is sort of Godzilla and that sort. So yeah, and they all three came to like £7 something. I'm cheating for the last two fiction, because I don't have anything else now. And this here was a 9th printing of Under Milkwood by Dylan Thomas, but it was 2014, as you can see, so I'm using that as published in 2014. This doesn't really need any introduction. It's a play for voices. 2015, nonfiction again, is 2015, is Bookmen, Book Clubs, and the Romantic Literary Sphere. And it's again one of these volumes in the Palgrave Studies of Enlightenment, Romanticism, and Cultures of Print. And I thoroughly enjoyed this one, and I made copious sort of notes, as well as, well, not notes so much, but references, because the bibliography is so good, and there's so many books that I want from this. But it talks about like reading clubs and the bookmen, and how book collecting and reading was done in the Roxburgh Club, and where these clubs started up, where they started printing books themselves. And it was just fascinating, because they're essays again, and they're very specific topics, but it went into more detail of some of these topics that I had known about, so I really enjoyed that. And again, this was one I got off Amazon from a seller, which keep an eye and got it cheap. So that's 2015. I don't think I have a fiction book for 2015. Oh, I do. And again, this is cheating. Penguin put this out. Mysteries of Paris. Eugene Sue. In 2015. So I'm cheating for that. I don't have anything else fiction after that I can think of. 2016. This is 2016. Yes, 2016. Is Adventures in the Strand, Arthur Conan Doyle in the Strand magazine by Mike Ashley. I like Mike Ashley. He's done so many books on science fiction and science fiction pulps and so forth, and edited. Yeah, it's just I have time for him. When I saw this as a remainder, I snapped it up, and it's literally his writing, and mostly obviously Sherlock Holmes, but other stories that showed up in the Strand, and how like it says here, helped basically keep the Strand going, and a little bit of history of the Strand. It's a British library, and as I say, 2016, and that was very good. 2017 is a big book here, The Country House Library by Mark Purcell, and that's Yale University Press, and it's a sumptuously illustrated history of country house libraries. And the author was well placed, because he was part of the National Trust for the libraries of houses, so he was able to get in, and it's a beautiful book as well. It's just gorgeous and very enjoyable. I definitely will be rereading that one. That's 2017. 2018 is, should make sure, 2018, yes. The 100 Best Nonfiction Books of All Time, Robert McCrum. And he did the articles were done in the Observer once a week. He did two things. He did a fiction one, I think in 2017 as well, or 16. I think it was 2016 for the fiction. And then this one came out in 2018 for the nonfiction. And it's just little essays on his pick of the 100 best nonfiction books. Now, I don't agree with everything he said, but he does say how and why he decides to choose that one and for that number. And it's interesting to see why he's done that. And sometimes I go, yeah, okay. After reading it. I read most of the articles as they came out anyway online, week by week, but when it came out in book form, because they're a little longer, and he's got a good introduction that sort of talks about, and also that he realized that he made some omissions after he was done, and then other people are saying, well, you should have had this one, and then he sort of defends or says, yeah, okay, maybe I should have. So that was very enjoyable. For 2019, I do have one book that I've purchased, but I have not read it yet, for nonfiction. I don't have, as far as I know, any 2019 fiction at all. Oh, no, I do. There was one I bought. I bought 2019. That was was it Shadow's Play? I did not like it, so I'm not adding that to this, so it's definitely not the best book. It may be the only book, but I did not enjoy it. This one here for nonfiction is The Bookshop of the World, Making and Trading Books in the Dutch Golden Age by Andrew Pettigrew and Arthur der Wedderwin. And I've read bits of this, but I haven't read it all. I've skimmed through and read bits and pieces. So I know sort of roughly the whole thing, but I would not say that I've read this. But that's the only 2019 book for nonfiction that I have. And that's it. And I don't have anybody to tag. If you want to do it, that's fine. Steve tagged a whole bunch. So I'll just end it there. I'm just looking at the time. Yeah, so it's just under 20 minutes. Oops. My camera is sliding down and getting over the... yeah, so I better hold it here. So I'm going to call it a day, and... the end of this video, and then I'll be back later. Thank you. BookTube. Bye.